Can you hear me? I cannot, but that's probably my computer. Or maybe not. Interesting. But you can hear me? Okay. Mm-mm. Nope, still can't hear you. It might be your mic setup. Welcome to Boss FM's Town Hall. We are clearly having some type of technical difficulties, but hopefully you all can hear me. My name's Tiff Linnell. That's Alex Haynes. He's going to try and see if maybe y'all know if you know Alex, you know that he is a professional at this. So he's probably got 3 mics and one of them is connected somewhere else. Who knows? But anywho, welcome to tonight's Town Hall. It's the night before election. We're all tired. It's so much going on. So much to just, everyone all day has just been all over the place. So welcome back. Let's see if we can hear you now. Nope. Welcome to the Town Hall. If you have any questions, you can tweet at BossFM Digital at Black News Alerts. Any questions or comments or concerns that you have. Just welcome. So a lot is going on. A lot of folks have voted early. Over 93 million early voters in the United States. That is about twice as much as what happened or how many people voted in 2016 election. So already quite an early turnout, and expecting even more turnout tomorrow because that's actually only about 50% of the registered voters in the United States. So I'm sure tomorrow will still be a heavy day. What do you think, Alex?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be still pretty crazy tomorrow. Hopefully not a lot of long lines, but probably a lot of long lines. I told folks on my show earlier today, pack your patience and pack a snack because it's probably going to be a long.
I think it's really kind of depending on the district. If you live in a really urban area or Black area, expect long lines. They've kind of made it that way intentionally to deter you from being there. And that doesn't matter what state you're in. We're seeing the problems in the north, in the south, in the east, and the west. So it's going to be a problem.
Right.
I've heard some really great stories. I've had friends that were in and out, and I've also had friends that have not really been able to withstand the lines, but they did it anyway. 2 hours, 3 hours. I was an hour and about 45 minutes in the rain.
I was 10 minutes.
Totally worth it.
Worth it for me too, 10 minutes. But I would have stood in line if I needed to. I just happened to, I waited until all of the, I'm in Georgia, so the first 3 days of early voting, it was 7 and 8 hour lines, technical difficulties, all that other stuff. I waited until the end of last week to go early vote. 10 minutes in and out.
We have 1 week, and so nothing else. Like you only have 1 week to early vote, so that's it.
Yeah.
And so it's different everywhere. It doesn't matter. Early voting, I said this on my show today because someone sent me a text and asked me if they could register to vote tomorrow. The answer is no. So if you have not registered to vote, you can go register and you can vote in your next local election and the upcoming midterms in 2 years, but you won't be voting for the president tomorrow.
Well, there are a couple of states that let you vote on election day. You have to, I believe, meet certain requirements, but there are a couple of states that let you vote on election day. They are Alaska, California, Colorado, Connecticut, DC, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Iowa, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Montana, Nevada, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Utah, Vermont, Washington, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. In Alaska and Rhode Island, election day registration allows you to vote for president and vice president only. But those are all the states that do allow election day registration. Now, if you are not in one of those states, then you are out of luck, and make sure you still get registered so you can vote in the next one in case.
In case. So if you're following along tonight, make sure you tweet us with your comments and thoughts at Black News Alerts or at BossFM Digital. We'll do our best to answer your question in real time.
We'll do our best. Anywho, so I want to talk a little bit about I was very intentional about the words that I used on my show today. So I'm going to try to keep with that intentionality and not call them militia groups, because that is an improper term. The extremist groups, the domestic terrorist groups.
They are white militias. That is accurate. They are that.
Well,
they are white.
The article I read said militia is intended for government official or government authorized groups. Now, though groups like the Oath Keepers are not authorized groups, I did hear President Asshat.
Well, they were authorized for the president by the
I
president.
was going to say, I did hear President Asshat say, "Stand up and stand by."
I really believe that they've been authorized and they are waiting. They are standing up and standing by.
I mean, I don't disagree with you.
But I would like to add some words to your dictionary. These are also thugs, okay? They are actually ghetto thugs. This is criminals. That's what they are. Violent thugs.
If these criminals show up to the polls, there are measures that are put in place. Now, it depends on where you are. Some of them may be organizations, some of them may be other authorities, some of them may be a motorcycle gang. Be safe. Be careful. Be safe. If you don't need to be out, if you don't need to go vote like you already voted, stay home. Tomorrow will be a day of, it'll be a day. It's one of these sides is going to lose.
Yeah, somebody is going to lose. That's how democracy works. Also, democracies allow people to vote. And so part of what I hope that you get out of here, you have the right to vote. You have the right to be there. You cannot be intimidated while you're there. I do believe that you should be prepared. I'm done telling Black people to be patient and be silent and shut up. No, you should be prepared for what you see. Yeah, you should be prepared for what you see. So what you see happening now, you know how you prepare, and then you be prepared if you have to vote tomorrow. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I mean, do your research before you go to the poll. Hopefully you've already done that. But if you haven't, make sure you do your research your ballot before you go to the polls, because a lot of states and jurisdictions have referendums, they have amendments. I went through that on my show earlier, but they have different measures that are on your ballot. It's not just president and vice president. So you want to make sure you go and are prepared to vote for everything that's on your ballot. You should be able to go to your state's voting website. If you don't know what that is, there are a plethora of sites that you can go to find it, or you can just Google whatever your state is, voter page, and it'll pop it up, and you can view a sample ballot on that voter page. And then you'll be able to see everyone who's running for any kind of office, any type of ballot measures, House bill resolutions, amendments for your state, anything like that. I even had an ethics question on mine, and I had no idea what it was talking about. So fortunately, there were a lot of resources for me to read up on that. But read up on the ballot measures before you actually go cast your ballot, because you cannot have a cell phone out inside your polling precinct place location. It cannot be out at all. So you can't be filling out the paperwork to go cast your ballot and say, oh, let me Google something real quick. You can't do that. You got to look at all of that before you get in there. So make sure you do your research so that you know what you're voting for, and like really, really, really do your research. If you have something on your ballot that's a House bill, and I don't mean like the electric, I mean like your state has put something on your ballot that you need to vote for, research it, because they use very tricky language, and sometimes it's not as straightforward as it's coming off to be. I gave some examples earlier today. So do your research, then go vote. Make sure you 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 vote.
I mean, well said. There are what I'm trying to convey, and this has been me all day. So this is it's very hard to stay connected to a script or a plan in the instance in which this is probably, and I said this on my show today, they're going to say to you that this is probably one of the most important elections of your life. I'm not going to feed you that BS, because that's what they've said about every situation, right?
Yeah.
9/11 was a one in a lifetime thing.
Right.
Okay. They said that you only go through one recession or depression. I'm now going through a pandemic. So I'm living a life that...
And our second recession, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm living a life that the once in a lifetime things just keep happening every 5 years. So I don't really know. We never saw this coming, our current presidency. And I think what you need to really keep in mind, you know where you are. Like the margin is up, like they're expecting like 6% undecided voters. You're not undecided. You know what you like.
Not at this point. You should not be undecided. No. No.
But you need to go there, and if you don't understand, and I saw this, and I wanted to share this. I think it's extremely important, and because the people that are going to be here are part of the Black community. You're in the Black community, and I want to get away from any confusion that you may have thinking that this vote is going to change your community. It's not. The problem is that you think that voting in a national election every 4 years is supposed to fix everything in your hood or in the hood. It's not going to happen. You need to vote. So you need to be registered, and then you need to vote for your crooked ass mayor or vote them out. Your city council people, you need to vote them out. But you need to know who they are. You need to know how it's affecting you and what's happening. And so, yes, it's important to vote in these general elections. We need your vote in this general election. Don't waste your vote in this general election. I'm somebody that suffers from election PTSD. And on November 9th, 2016, I could not move. But I had to literally figure it out. We went into this. The polls were saying the same things that they were saying then. If we wanted to say, the polls were actually right. Hillary Clinton won the last election by 3 million votes, but people didn't like her. You don't like women, and maybe you don't know you don't like women, but that's why you're on the fence about Kamala. You need to check that internal compass and see see where your heart is, but you need to just make sure that you are there. It's important that you vote.
Yeah, it's ultimately important that you vote. And I've seen a lot of people saying, I'm going to vote like my life depends on it. It actually does. Because when you are really looking at it, I was listening to a presentation earlier today about environmental justice. It's a problem. And people like who you are voting in your local elections, like you said, your raggedy ass mayor, people like that, they're on these types of ballots. So that's who is going to
The
help
raggedy ass politicians exist.
everywhere on both sides. Let's be clear, on all sides, on all fronts, they exist. And so if you don't want to have an issue like the example that was given in the presentation earlier today was a landfill in an area that is really, it was an illegal dumping area and landfill, and it was causing smoke. They were burning it. It was causing smoke in the area, and who knows the health issues that will be in that area. And it was in a predominantly Black area and community. So if you want to be able to hold your local officials accountable, now is the time to, not vote in people like Daniel Cameron, who is the Kentucky AG. He is now there for another 3 years because he was voted in. Do your research. Again, vote not just for president, vice president. Do your research on all the local politicians and all the ballot measures and show up. So yeah, what do you think about all of the last minute stomping in the battleground states that's been going on? I know Obama was here today and was chilling with 2 Chainz in Southwest Atlanta. I don't know where Trump was.
Trump is circling the states that he really needs. And I want you guys to understand this. We want everyone out there, but we know the numbers already. If Trump loses Florida, he loses.
Right.
Now there are multiple paths of victory for Joe Biden, but Donald Trump really has to win some specific states.
Mm-hmm.
If you know the history of Florida, Florida likes to Florida, especially in general elections. They just kind of lose their mind. In the year 2000, and if you're a little younger, you won't remember this. This is right before 9/11, and George Bush was running against Al Gore, who was Bill Clinton's vice president.
Right.
Florida was the problem, specifically, I believe, Broward County, as usual. And there was a recount. But guess who the governor of Florida was at the time? Jeb Bush, George Bush's brother. You know who threw Florida? Jeb Bush.
Jeb Bush.
Do you know
where I demand a recount came from?
You know what that recount did? It elected George Bush as the president of the United States. I'm not going to blame him for 9/11, but 1 year later that happened.
It's ironic you say that, because I said on a show a few weeks ago, I never thought that I would be sitting here saying I actually miss Bush. He wasn't that bad.
No, he was. He was also very dumb. But the difference is he was presidential in his stupidity, right? He was the president for all people. And right now we have a president that's for the red states, and if not for the red states, just for his people. And we could go down the countless list of things that this man has said, from Mexicans are rapists, and he doesn't want people here from shithole countries, specifically the brown and Black ones. Grab him by the pussy. This is the current president, and this is just who he is. This isn't a lie. No one's making this up. It's just who he is. And a part of that is attractive, I know, to some people, because he has charisma. He's funny. He's really funny, but he is not presidential. He should not be leading the country, and he has us really, really on the precipice of losing the democracy.
I think we've already lost it. I think that I'm going to speak it into existence, when he loses tomorrow, I think that will, he's already talking about if it's not called early enough or whatever, basically he's going to call it. Or that if it
this is exactly what he wants to do. And I will say that he is the cause of the landslide that we've seen in voting. The outpour of people going out is because people don't like their votes marginalized. They don't like it at all. And so when he was saying months ago that he's going to consider mail-in votes as fraudulent, and mail-in voting is fraudulent. You know who showed up at the polls? You went out there and you did your thing. And so now that
Right.
you've shown up, which he didn't think you were coming, like Donald Trump, his strategy this term was not to get any new people on the party. It's just to get his base out there, and they're going
Right.
to get in their pickup trucks and drive out there with their beer cans, and they will be there, jumping on the back of trucks with pitchforks, and they're going to be there. And he didn't know that you were coming, and now that you have come, there's a problem. And so in certain states, I mean, the Trump administration is in court all over the country trying to get these mail-in votes thrown out and trying to get votes that come in after election day not counted. Now, if you know the history of America and the history of our elections, luckily the secretaries of states in these countries, in these states, are standing firm and talking about how elections work, and they are standing firm that every vote will be counted, whether it comes in after the date. Some states have requirements for postmarks, some states don't. Pennsylvania is a state that has never had mail-in voting, so they don't really have a process. They're not going to really open and prep the votes until tomorrow morning. They won't start counting the votes until tomorrow night. So you are going to see some delays. You're not going to have a result on day one. We will know based on how some certain states swing, though. Georgia counts very fast. Florida counts very fast. Georgia is really in the polls right now. Biden is in the lead. That doesn't mean anything. In 2016, it didn't mean anything. So what you need to focus on is ensuring that everybody that you know gets out and gets the opportunity. If you know somebody that's like, I can't miss work, volunteer to pay them that $10 an hour, that they stand in line. If you got to pay them $70 to vote, do it. Do it. I think each one got to lead one at this point. And I think
I agree.
That's just where we are.
And even if you're not partnering with an organization, I'm partnering with an organization tomorrow here in Georgia, and I have to be at the poll at 6:30 in the morning. But, we all make sacrifices. Even if you are not officially working with an organization, pay attention to your jurisdiction rules. But there are certain things that you can do to go do what is called line warming. Engage with the people in line. If you have a talent, walk through the line and sing a song, if you have a talent. Not every joyful noise is a joyful noise. Okay. So make sure you can, hum a tune, carry a melody. I don't recommend playing any banjos or anything, but if you can juggle, go juggle. If you can play the guitar, go walk the line and play the guitar. It depends on where you are. Be careful about passing out snacks and water. They're trying to use some old rules and codes, enforcements in certain areas and jurisdictions and states, especially in the South, that says basically you can't pass out food or snacks because it's considered promoting a candidate or anything like that. So as long as you are offering snacks to everyone, to the general public, then you're fine. But just be mindful of the codes that are being enforced in your jurisdiction, but go partake. There's plenty of things that can be done that you don't have to be in any official capacity or anything like that to just engage. Especially if you have early voted, there are plenty of things to do. Watch social media and help people report what's going on at different precincts. If you are seeing voter fraud happen, not voter fraud, if you are seeing some election protection that is needed, start tweeting people back with the voter protection hotline numbers that are available, or tweeting different resources. I know some people are virtual only. They are still quarantining for one reason or another, or can't leave the house, or don't have a ride or anything like that. There are plenty of ways to get involved, sitting in the comfort of your home, even on election day. And other than that, grab a drink. Election coverage starts on multiple channels at various times, but it's pretty much 24/7 because here we are. But by God, no one's going to judge you if you grab a drink by 11:30. 12.
I'll start probably with breakfast.
A mimosa will probably kick off my day. And then I'll slide into.
I have to go harder than that.
I
But
said
in moderation, because I gotta last.
exactly. So that's why I said kick off. A mimosa will kick off the day.
What you do is throw a shot into your coffee.
That's it.
I know.
That's it. I can do that.
Brown though. It needs to be brown.
Oh, I don't do the white. I can't do the clear. That's not
Ever.
I'm not about that life anymore. No. So I'm curious if, we both had different early voting experiences. You said you were an hour and change.
An
I
hour
don't remember.
45. Yeah.
An hour 45? No. What was the longest line time that you heard about, and where was it?
About 3.5 hours in the Bronx.
Oh, that's not too bad.
I mean, nobody's getting there's not a lot of suppression up here, right? So it's just long, and we actually wear masks and social distance, and so unlike what's happening in the South, when they are actively trying to prevent you from voting, and then y'all are coughing on each other and breathing on each other and doing things to spread this virus.
I can't even take that as shade.
And you can't, because it's really what's
Because
happening.
it's really what's happening. It is. So the longest line I heard of down here was 10 hours. The shortest
10 hours.
Yeah, the longest time I heard after that was 8 hours. People were standing in line for 8 hours.
No.
And that was the early voting line. So, down here, they made State Farm Arena like a huge polling precinct that they were going to, they basically consolidated quite a few polling precincts. Well, apparently the first day, some of the machines weren't working. It was a nightmare. They got it rectified, and there's like 300 machines in that one facility.
You know what I will say, and I will. I have to give New York credit for this, because I was a former Georgia voter, and I've used the same machines that somehow just magically don't work when it's time for them to work. New York uses paper.
You did say that.
And not the entire process is paper, but your ballot is paper. And so I think that makes a huge difference, because they kind of come in, they look you up on an iPad, then they print out your ballot on a long form standardized test. You bubble it in like a standardized test, and then you take it to a scanner, which is computerized, and it counts your vote. I don't know what Georgia doesn't get.
Ooh.
It just has never worked. And I know that Alabama, and there's some other places, and I'm really not trying to focus on southern states, but there are a lot of places where there are problems with these voting machines. And so my last charge of the evening, after this is over, if it's possible, run for office. Run for multiple offices. You and your friends, maybe you never thought about it, and you sick of saying thank you for calling State Farm. It's time to look into some other options and some other avenues. There's some other things that you can do. You don't have to run for governor. You don't have to run for mayor, but you can run for city council. Hell, run for the damn school board. Run for something so that you know how it works. And after you run, get a whole coalition behind you. And the way that y'all be getting your followers up, you can do this. You can do it. And do you see what's and now I'm triggered, because I'm thinking about my gripes, and you have 2 senators per state, and then your representatives are representative of the number of people in your state. So your state may have multiple members in Congress. And I'll share this with you, Tiff. I was watching a hearing last week, and the senior senator in Vermont, his name is not coming to me because it's kind of odd. It's very Caucasoid, but it's very kind of odd. But the senior senator is 70. I'm sorry, 80.
Oh,
80.
We did talk about
80.
this.
The junior senator
is Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders and he's 79. And so I hope that
Oh
hits
my
home for
God.
you. There's two senators in that state. One is 80 and one is 79, and that's the senior and the junior. And so John Ossoff is running for Senate in Georgia, 33 years old, against
Right.
David Perdue, old as dirt.
Who has got to get out of office.
And racist, you know? And so if you're sick of racism, change it. And yeah, we know racism, and then now they say it's like, oh, you're gonna call it like, you know, we're not. Nobody just calls racism to call racism. It's not a fun thing to call. It's not fun to be discriminated against. It's not like none of that is fun. What you do have the power to, at least right now, you know, 4 more years of Trump, I don't know what power you will have, is the opportunity to run. So dive into it, see what you can do, but most importantly, get your ass out there and vote.
Period. And his name is Patrick Leahy, and he was born in 1940.
And that means Sanders was born in 1941.
Right. 80 and 79.
Donald Trump was born in like 1947. So do you see this? Do you see what the problem is? And I'm not an ageist at all. I think age brings wisdom. They should be advisors, not leaders.
I agree. Now that's it. Because I think part of the issue is we don't have it. Now you know I can get on my church box.
I won't be here for that if you do that, but
I won't. But whether it's church or state, there's not enough intergenerational communication. And I think that the misconception is that the younger generations, whether it be millennials or Gen Z or whatever, don't want to hear it. And it's not that. It's that it's like we're talking past each other.
Well, it's the same thing. And at times they don't want to hear it, just like old people don't want to hear things from young people. Like
right.
And then they're like, oh, we want new ideas, but respect me. Part of me giving you the idea is going to be disrespectful. You're going to deem it disrespectful because you're stuck in a tradition that needs to change. So
right.
You think we're disrespecting, but we're not. We're just telling you to evolve. At the same time, you know, younger people don't really want to be disrespected, but there's a meeting of the minds that can happen there. There's a meeting of the minds that should happen there. You know, typically we would have election coverage, and I shared this on my show today. I don't know if you shared it, but I also shared a clip. If you listen to me on air on November 8th, 2016, I was very energetic. I started my show on November 9th in silence. Me and my co-host actually just sat there with dark shades on and stared at each other while the mics were on.
Did.
Literally. And finally, it's like, we have to say something.
I think you said one line and then went to commercial.
But the thing is, I heard part of it. Like, that's why I said I have PTSD, because I did start going off on my listeners, not intentionally, but some of you were to blame because, you know, like,
you voted for Harambe.
Like, I'm not right. You voted for Harambe and Hennessy. You wasted a full vote on that. You will waste a vote tomorrow on Kanye because you love his Kmart clothes. Like, I don't really understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I can't put it together. And I think I don't want that to happen again. Voting for Hennessy, I don't think, and Harambe, I don't think that's going to happen. You know, it's unfortunate that we don't lift women the way that we should, because we should have more women in these leadership positions. But because Kamala is on the ticket, some people are like, well, man, what happens if he dies? What? Hillary Clinton literally was the most qualified person in the world to be the president. Literally. And she still is today. She has the most experience, all this law experience, followed by being the first lady of the United States, following by taking an 8-year break. You know, like, Biden ain't took no breaks. But then she was the Secretary of State. So she has these formed relationships. I'm not trying to sell Hillary, but I'm just saying that she's literally the most qualified person on the planet.
And that's not saying that she was perfect, but she was qualified. Like, I don't know. I don't understand how. I think I'm
vote
riggered because
now I'm mad.
Yeah. Vote. Vote. There's like literally no other way to say it. If you need rides to the polls, I know that it is a little bit different in COVID times, but there are some organizations that are doing rides to the polls. You can check your local churches and organizations. If you are in Georgia, there is an organization called NACA that is offering rides to the polls.
You see how she does? She's not checking for the other 49 states, but if you're in Georgia, she can tell you how to get there.
I mean, I know that they're there. I just know what's in my neck of the woods.
I feel it.
But there are rides.
I think the point has been conveyed, right? And I think people are getting sick of hearing it. So that means get out and vote. Like, the only reason we do stuff like this and that you're seeing it all over the place and your phone keeps going off with reminders and Instagram is reminding you, stop hiding that. Like, especially you person that didn't vote and you are registered.
You better get out there.
I'm getting old enough to give you the look of an elder. And so get your ass to the polls tomorrow. Period.
Like, this isn't a joke. It isn't a game. Vote. Seriously. 93 million people have shown up. But you know what else is another high statistic? We have reached 9.2 million COVID cases. Over 9.2 million. The United States is number one in the world with over 230,000 deaths from COVID. It did not have to be that way. So voting literally is a matter of life and death. Over 230,000 deaths from a pandemic, from a virus that had, Trump not disbanded the pandemic task force that Obama had put in place shortly after he was put into office. Some of this may have been prevented. I'm not even going to say that. A lot of this could have been prevented if we had taken the measures that we needed to take from the leadership down, from the top down. Then a lot of this could have been prevented. A lot of the states could have been closed sooner. I said this on my show earlier today. I'm going to say it again. It was COVID-19, as in 2019. So we knew about this last year and did nothing. Vote because coronavirus. Vote because climate change. Vote because local officials. Vote because Black Lives Matter. Vote because Daniel Cameron. Vote because all of the other things. That the list goes on. Vote because immigration. Vote. So we have someone else that is going to join and carry the night through. If AD will come to the stage.
Come on through, AD.
What's up?
Y'all vote.
Yes, vote. I voted on Tuesday. I voted last week. What are you talking about?
As well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. I love hearing different perspectives because my voting experience was completely different. It was actually pretty swiftly. I was in and out, and I was allowed to have my phone. So I was sneaky. Yeah, we had portals. So like each person was socially distanced, and we had like little blinders so you won't cheat on your test. And had my phone out, literally, and I was Googling the nominees I wasn't too sure about for my state representation. And then, like you had mentioned earlier, we did have like certain amendments and bills that they wanted to pass. So for Florida, because I am a current Florida resident, I actually was blessed for the states. Some of the questions were raise minimum wage, all those type of things. So it's super important, like they had mentioned, to go ahead and check out what you will be voting for before you go in. I wish I would have done that. I researched, obviously, because of the town hall and other reasons, certain things, obviously, like which presidential candidate I was going to vote for, as well as the state representation, so like governor, mayor, and there's been a lot of signs. I don't know about, I can't speak for every other state, but as a Florida resident, in Orlando, there's been a lot of signs for mayor, sheriff, like they are petitioning themselves, but just because that's all you see and that they have that budget for it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the person you should be voting for. You literally shouldn't be bandwagoning in order to cast your vote. And some people think that their vote doesn't matter. I know back in the 2016 elections, again, I had done my research, but as a first-time voter and somebody into college, I don't know how many of our viewers are actual college students or in that age range, but I wasn't aware of absentee balloting until it was too late. So because of that, I ended up not being able to vote because I was a Florida resident, but I went to college in Pennsylvania. So guys, I feel like knowledge is power, knowledge is key. It's super important to really like catch up on these things because this is our life. Like it's crazy to me to actually think and understand that things could have been different if a lot of us, and I'm in myself, I put myself in that lazy category, couldn't fill something out and couldn't be informed. We're so consumed by our lives and how busy we are. But we need to take a step back sometimes and focus on the bigger picture. So it's a great discussion for this debate. And guys, I don't know about you, but I feel like this has probably been the most informed I've been out of all the elections. And because of that, I love hearing other people's opinions and being able to create that discussion, not an argument, a discussion. It's okay to not agree with somebody's views. It's okay to have an open discussion. That way you learn from one another, right? And with that said, I've been watching a lot of people, whether it's YouTubers, TikTokers, creators, as they talk about this election in particular. And this is the interesting thing to me. So every year, Fox, CNN, all the outlets have the race to 270. So for those of you who aren't aware of what's this race to 270? 270, whichever candidate gets 270 first, you're the president. Okay. So there's certain states, and I know for a fact Ohio has been one of these states since forever. They always say whatever Ohio decides, that's the president. And they haven't been wrong for years and years and years and years. So I always usually look out to see what Ohio has to offer because they usually pick the president. So after Ohio is all counted, I go to bed. I'm like, oh, okay, that's the president of the United States. But this is going to be an interesting. So this is what this informative person said. Imagine tomorrow, the race to 270. And what a lot of people and their theories include are that Trump is possibly going to get to the 270 mark by tomorrow. But then we still have to include all the absentee ballots, all the mail-in ballots. And because of all the mail-in ballots, the true winner will actually be the new president, Mr. Joe Biden, right? And we all know how Trump feels about the mail-in ballots. If you watch any of the debates, he's mentioned these are crooked, right? These are very, very, very crooked. So with that said, Joe Biden will actually be the winner and the president of the United States, but then Trump refuses to leave office. And then guess what's going to happen? We've already witnessed the protest from both sides. And if you are unaware to what is going on in our country right now, you will be forced to be aware, because the amount of anguish from both sides is very scary. It's very fearful, because this president has caused the most division in, I believe, the history of elections. You know, he's blunt. He tells it like it is, right? And that's why people admire him. But it's also hurt a lot of people. Guys, this country, literally, it's a melting pot. And that's what makes it so beautiful, is you have all these cultures. And everyone, unless you're a Native American, is an immigrant to this country. So the fact that we're shutting those out and not giving opportunities to the future generations and generations to really build upon this country, it's sad. So it starts here, right? It starts with you. So don't think, just one more vote, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Your vote matters. You matter, and you could possibly change everything. You don't want this to be close. You want this to be unanimous. That way, this man can't say it was a hoax. It was a hoax, the biggest hoax. They wanted me out. It's a ruse. Russia helped. Somebody else infiltrated the system. We don't want that, folks. So please go out and vote. You can literally Google anywhere what time your polling closes. So thank you guys. Appreciate it. And I think we're transitioning off into something else. Let's see. Alrighty, folks, we're transitioning into this. Honestly, if I'm going to be quite frank with you guys, I feel Pence a little bit more than I do Trump. If Pence was the president, I feel like it wouldn't. I feel like he has, I don't know, just more respect than 45. You know, I feel like he also, though, he bandwagons off of what 45 has to say, which is pretty toxic. So that makes him a follower, not a leader. But hey, I guess he thinks I'm the VP, so why does it matter, right? But it does matter. In fact, it matters a lot. Oh, so as we transition, let me get my thoughts together for a second. All right, so we're going to talk about economy and jobs, folks, right? The tax cuts, the biggest tax reform in 30 years. To cut taxes for small businesses by 20%, providing the $415 billion in tax relief for these small businesses, not to mention lowering the corporate tax from 35% to 21%, right? Also, the United States GDP growth. 2018, the annual GDP was 2.9% in the first fiscal quarter of 2019. The GDP growth was 3.1%, right? So in terms of taxes and tax cuts, I personally haven't been affected because being in school, I'm still young. So this really, it doesn't affect me. When I do my taxes, I do it on TurboTax. I don't know who else does it, but that's the cost effective way. I think this was probably the first year, 2000, and yeah. So this last year was the first year where taxes was just, it was real to me. It was like, oh God, this is what the real life is like. I wish I was still in school. Um, so I wish I was aware to the tax cut that, our president gets to utilize. I feel like if I was more aware of that, I feel like high schools and colleges really need to focus on teaching the new era and new generations how to actually do your taxes, how to actually adult, and realistically just what it takes to be an adult and really be successful. I feel like if more schools focused on that instead of teaching you if train A leaves at the station at 5:45 p.m., what time will it run into train B? Like, that's not important. Like, I'm not a conductor, I'm not a captain of a train. I'm not gonna need that information. But teach me how to do my taxes, and you know what? I could be a billionaire by now. But hey, to each their own, right? So on the topic of immigration, I feel like this really like hits an emotional spot for me because my father's side of the family, my dad immigrated from Dominican Republic and my mother was born in New York City. So as a second generation Dominican and third generation Puerto Rican, it saddens my heart because, like I said, the Native Americans, this was their land and it was taken from them. But this is the importance of knowing your history. It wasn't until I was informed there is this amazing special on Netflix. If you guys have not seen it, I advise you to go check it out. It's called John Leguizamo's Latin American History for Dummies or something like that. And he schools you, but he puts his comedy in it. He's that funny guy, but he schools you at the same time. He lets you know, first off, Christopher Columbus, right? He wasn't even Spain. He was Italian. He was sent by the Spain, right? So this Italian man was sent on a mission to discover a new world. Okay, a new world, even though it already existed. So he does that. And what does he do? He discovers America and other islands as well, like Puerto Rico, the Caribbean. Like, that's what he does. And he found that it was already inhabited. So this rich land that has gold, chocolate, cocoa, folk art, like this amazing culture and history gets, were you guys even aware that rats and roaches didn't even exist until they brought it? They also brought syphilis. They brought other diseases, plagues, rats and roaches and measles. Yeah, that was them. And then they decided to, rape our women and commit genocides, and because of that, killed off a lot of the natives. And then they went to Africa to take some of their people and then populate them over here. And then they have the audacity to go ahead and say, oh, you're not welcome. It blows my mind. So guys, that's why it's so important to just know your history and just be woke. Anyways, on the topic of immigration, the Trump administration has funded 445 out of 772 miles of the border wall, 10,000 new ICE agents, and 5,000 extra Border Patrol agents. Repealed the Deferred Action for Parents, aka known as DAPA program. Signed 3 executive orders aimed at cracking down on international plan. Made the deportation of illegal immigrants a priority. removing 226,119 people in 2017, removing 256,085 in 2018. Because this wall is so important to you, right? Creating separation is so important to you, right? Because that's what makes America great. Intriguing. Trump's also signed an executive order to restore state and local law enforcement access to surplus Defense Department equipment. Wow. Okay. So this is what you want to do. You want to create separation. It's literally a joke. I'm sorry. Like I'm trying to be as serious and professional as I can be when speaking about this, but in this topic in particular, when you're speaking on the lives of human beings that were here first, by the way, because if you don't know, a lot of islanders, so in terms of those from the islands, like the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, like the islands, they have more native in their blood than the president of the United States. Interesting. All right, let's move along to healthcare, folks. And in speaking of healthcare, as part of the landmark Tax Cut and Jobs Act, President Trump repealed the individual mandate. President Trump signed a 6-year extension of CHIP, which is Children's Health Insurance Program, to fund healthcare for $9 million. And he plans to end Obamacare. There was a news report that I saw, I believe it was either this morning or yesterday, in which the reporter was supposed to interview the president of the United States and talk about this new healthcare plan that the president said that he had in motion, right? And one of his people actually comes with this big proposal of what this new healthcare plan is supposed to be. And it wasn't even something that solidified. It was like basically going around in like circles. It wasn't even like clear and cut to the point, guys. That's why I say really be aware, like just be aware, guys, of what you're voting for, what you're getting involved in, because it matters so much. It does. It really does matter. So moving along, we're going to move ahead. And before we get into energy and environment, a lot of people in this country don't have healthcare. A lot. I'm one of those people because, first off, it's expensive and I rather have to deal with it later than deal with it now. So, like I said, be wary and mindful and just consider it, because we're voting for somebody to help not only our lives, but our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, and friends, and even people we don't know. So be conscious. And in talking of energy and environment, President Trump signed an executive order to expand offshore oil and gas drilling and open more leases to develop offshore drilling, which isn't earth friendly. The Trump administration reversed President Obama's Obama's moratorium on new leases for oil and gas development on federal lands, which also isn't earth friendly. But President Trump withdrew the US from the Paris Climate Agreement. I know we talked about this before in our other town halls. So if you guys haven't checked that out, you should really watch our town halls, because we really go in on those debates. And if you're still confused at this point, please revisit those. They have so much of an abundance of information that will help you make a decision. I promise you on that. Not to mention, guys, that when President Trump withdrew the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement, the summary for that is the Paris Agreement is a landmark environmental accord that was adopted by nearly every nation in 2015 to address climate change and its negative impacts. The agreement includes commitments from all major emitting countries to cut their climate altering pollution and to strengthen those which made the commitments over time. Signed legislation to open the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge for domestic energy production, and repealed the Clean Power Plan, repealed President Obama's methane emission rule. We're going to talk about the Plantium Plan, right? This increases access to capital in the Black community by almost 500 billion. 3 million new jobs for the Black community, creating 500,000 new Black-owned businesses. This is great. It is. Creating new jobs is important, but their livelihood is also important, folks. So it's safe urban neighborhoods with the highest policy standings. Commits to working on a second step act, including increase of drug rehabilitation versus drug incarceration, access to better education and job training opportunities, not to mention gives Black churches the abilities to compete for federal resources for their community, right? And advance financial literacy and home ownership opportunities in the Black community, on offshoring manufacturing to advance jobs and develop opportunities for Black-owned businesses. Yes, come through for the come through. Now we're going to discuss, COVID-19. We've been in this discussion. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of hearing about it. And I just wish it didn't exist at this point. This year started off with a heaviness because of this pandemic. And it could have been avoided. It really could have. But we're here. So what can we say? So to start this topic off, here's a clip of the president discussing the COVID crisis. Let's play that clip.
Out, we're expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better. And I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure. But I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators. We're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Okay.
Wow. So that clip has a lot to unpack, doesn't it? I'm actually really not shocked that, first off, the president actually contracted the virus and has been cured, in his words, he says. Whether it's for 4 months, as he says, or 4 years, or a lifetime. No one knows, because this virus is the virus isn't new, but the adaptation of this virus and how lethal it is. So he's been the first. My thing is, are the rich and the insured and the elite going to be the first in a while to receive this cure, right? What about those struggling? What about the poor, disenfranchised that can't get to it? First off, how many forms of this cure are available and accessible? Because if we remember back to when this pandemic started, there wasn't even enough testing. There was only testing for a certain amount. And I don't know, I just find it very, like, these statistics are really, like, weird to me. Because as someone who lives in Florida, right? I live in Orlando, Florida, and they continue to talk about how Florida is spiking and spiked and all this, but as somebody who lives here on the stomping grounds, I really don't see how Florida is more at a peak in comparison to like other states. But hey, I only live in one area, so don't take my word for it. Please. This is all allegedly, guys. This is my opinion. So if you don't agree with it, it's alleged. But I am here. So I'm still waiting to see the spikes. It's mostly was the tourists who decided to come during spring break, and it wasn't the locals. They're giving us a bad rep. I'm just saying, not all of us are crazy. Please don't buy into that false narrative because it's not true. And moving along into probably one of my favorites, right? Because the administration will deliver the 300 million vaccines. And they say they're going to do this before January of 2021 with the help of the U.S. military, which is going to be known as the Operation Warp Speed that we continue to hear about this. And I would very much be interested to hear about this Operation Warp Speed. And I'm kind of fearful for it. Like, the individuals who really want this vaccine, are we sure because of how new it is that this vaccine isn't going to have side effects? We don't know anything about it because this is so new. And not everybody's body reacts the same. Not only that, but is it going to have some effect with those who are old versus new? This is just, this pandemic has been very stressful on everybody. Everybody, whether you've been affected personally or not, it's just been saddening and heartbreaking. And my heart goes out to all of those who've been affected and have contracted the virus. I know a couple people who've contracted it. Thank God that I haven't, and I have continued to be healthy. So folks, continue to social distance, continue to wear your mask, continue to just be mindful. Now we will go into our next transition, which is the presidential candidate for Biden and Harris campaign. So, folks, information via the Biden campaign website, right? We're going to start off with economy, the recovery, and jobs. Guys, because of this pandemic, so many people lost their lives. So that's why this is a great transition from COVID into the future and how to build this economy. Providing further immediate relief to working families, small businesses, and communities. We know that Vice President Joe Biden has talked about this PPE. First off, this second stimulus package that was talked about and has been talked about for months, that's been just sitting there and nobody has been able to come to an agreement. This is the American people. Put your pride aside, both sides. I'm not just speaking in terms of one side. Both sides needed to put their pride aside and really take into account that the American people They need this. A lot of people, because I'm sorry, $1,200, that's chump change, y'all. $1,200 is probably like, if you really trying to stretch $1,200, you can probably stretch it, depending on like your lifestyle and situation, a month, if that. You got to think about rent. You got to think about food. Groceries aren't cheap. The cost of living isn't cheap. Doesn't matter where you live. I don't care where you live. Cost of living isn't cheap anymore, right? So this second PPE, we still waiting on it, and it's about to be 2021. 2020 is about to be over. Is this PPE even gonna come? Oh, even COVID is probably gonna pass, and this PPE still wouldn't be in existence. But let's move on. So, mobilizing American manufacturers and innovations to ensure that the future is made in America. All right. So, mobilizing American iniquity to build a modern infrastructure as an equitable, clean future will create millions of jobs. We need jobs. Jobs are good. We love jobs. Yes, get that bag. Building a 21st century caregiving and education workforce, which will help ease the burden of care for working parents. Yes, we are with that. And mobilize across the board, advance racial equity in America, inequality, pursuing a dedicated agenda to close this racial wealth gap. Yes. Get that bag. I am with this bag. Can we get multiple bags, multiple streams of revenue? I am there. Where's my bread? Alrighty, folks. So we're going to move on to immigration for the Biden-Harris transition, which is completely different from the first one mentioned. So in this, President Biden, I'm already saying Vice President Biden, actually discussed how he is going to reinstate the DACA program, which is amazing, right? So he wants to take urgent action to undo Trump's damage and reclaim American values, which means to immediately reverse the Trump administration's policy for separating children from their parents at our borders. Super important. And Trump's detrimental asylum policies, which means the imposed additional restrictions on anyone traveling through Mexico and Guatemala, and prolonged detention, and reinvest in case management programs. And pay your social workers more, please. And the so-called national emergency that siphons federal dollars from the Department of Defense to build a wall. He wants to protect dreamers and their families and rescind the un-American travel and refugee ban, aka also known as the Muslim ban, right? He wants to modernize American immigration system. Joe will work with Congress to not only create a roadmap to citizenship for nearly 11 million, but reform visa programs from temporary workers in selected industries. Reject the false choice between employment-based and family-based immigration, right? And welcome immigrants into our country. Why is this such a hard concept to understand? Treat people like they're human beings, no matter where they come from. A lesson in kindness. Be kind to one another. Why is this so hard? We live in a 2020, and for some reason, this is still a hard concept to comprehend, which makes no sense at all. Guys, it's so important because he wants to establish offices of immigration affairs in city halls or at county and state levels. He wants to push to repeal extreme anti-immigration state laws, to reassert American commitment to asylum seeking and refugees, and implement effective border screenings. When people seek asylum, a lot of people come to this country because they want a better life. They want the American dream, right? White picket fence, being able to work. And a lot of these immigrants are such hard workers because they appreciate the opportunity that is here versus what they have back at their country. Whether it's for safety reasons, aka asylum, or it's to send money back to their family because their family can't afford to live. Be kind. Just be kind. Guys, this is so important. So please, if we haven't said it, go vote. Now, in the topic of healthcare, we want to protect that Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, right? He wants to build on Obamacare. So I remember in the second debate, he talked about building on Obamacare, and obviously he's going to have Obamacare, but then a portion of Obamacare and call this Biden care. Because, every president wants to leave their mark and put their name on something. And this is Biden putting his name on this, right? So he wants to give every American access to the affordable health insurance, right? By increasing the value of the tax credits to lower premiums and extend coverage to more working Americans. Expanding coverage to low-income Americans. Alrighty. So standing up to the abuse of power by the prescription drug corporation. So repealing the exception allowing drug corporations to avoid negotiation, with Medicare over drug prices. Medicine is expensive if you don't have insurance. It is so expensive. I remember I had a month supply of some prescription, and it was $500 for these 30 capsules, right? $500. I found a coupon that brought it down to like $300. But out of pocket, that's still a lot, especially I'm not a big baller, guys. Not yet. I will be one day. God, from my mouth to your ears, you feel me? One day I will be a big baller, but I ain't there yet. I'm still a struggling college student. I'm trying to get that bag. So $500, that's like rent or living. Oh my gosh, folks. So please, yes, healthcare is one of the biggest issues and it's super important. And I'm gonna need a president to come through with the healthcare because I want to be able to go to the doctors without crying because no, I don't care if my liver is exploding. I can't afford it. I had a car accident in the beginning of January. She wanted to give me an x-ray because I said my shoulder was hurting. I said, no, I can't afford it. That's literally what I said. Can you imagine being in a car accident and telling them, no, don't operate. I can't afford it. It's sad, but that's the country we live in. So, let's move on to standing up to abuse of power for the prescription, right? That's what we were talking about. So limiting the launch prices for drugs to face no competition are being abusively priced by manufacturers, limiting these prices and increasing for all brands, biotech, and abusively priced generic drugs to inflation. And now we're moving on to energy and the environment. You see that? I was able to breathe in some oxygen, clean oxygen. That's what we want for our planet. We want to do our planet justice, right? So in this administration, they want to ensure the United States achieves 100%, 100, not 90, 100% clean air and economy and reach net zero emissions no later by 2050. I think I'll still be alive by that time. I think so. Rally the rest of the world to meet the threat of climate change, fulfill our obligations to workers and communities who provide our industry revolution and subsequent decades of economic growth. The Biden plan will make a historic investment in our clean energy future and environmental justice, paid for by rolling back this Trump tax incentive that enriched the corporations, all the expenses of the American jobs and environment. This was probably the funniest part of the debate. I'm not going to lie. The second debate, not the first one, because When he said it, he was literally like, I'm gonna take that tax cut that you utilized. So thank you very much for putting that out there. And we about to get this country back on track. Hilarious. Mic drop. Alrighty, so I guess we're talking about COVID-19 again. I know folks are tired of hearing about it, but we're living it. So let's play this clip of Biden discussing COVID. Shall we?
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially, anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far and still has no plan, no comprehensive plan. What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President Trump, I'd like to follow up.
Amen. He will make sure that he has a plan. I'm with it. All right. Let's give him a chance, right? Let's give him that chance. All righty, folks. So listen to science. Ensure public health decisions are informed by public health professionals. Restore trust, transparency, common purpose, and accountability to our government. Fix Trump's testing and tracking FASCO to ensure all Americans have access to regular, reliable, and free testing. Fix personal protective equipment for good. Fully use the Defense Production Act to ramp up production of masks, face shields, and other PPEs so that national supply of personal protective equipment exceeds demand in our stores and stockpiles, especially in hard-hit areas that serve disproportionate vulnerable populations that are fully replenished. Provide a clear, consistent evidence-based guidance for how communities should navigate through COVID. Plan for effective, equitable distribution of treatment and vaccines. Rebuild and expand the defense that Trump dismantled to predict, prevent, and mitigate pandemic threats. Implement the mask mandate nationwide. Again, I will say nationwide. Alrighty, nationwide. It's crazy because when you really think about it, statewide, everything is so different. It is. I was in Pennsylvania when this pandemic broke out, literally the week of government shutdown. I went to Pennsylvania and I was stuck there for 3 months. And to see the difference, like a lot of people, I don't know if it was because I was in the Poconos, but people didn't want to wear their masks. They don't wear their masks. But inside, obviously, legally, you're required. You have to wear your mask. But people weren't causing a fuss. Now, if you were in the big cities, of course. And then when I came back home in July to Florida and everything was shut down, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. Everything's shut. What? My home? Hmm? Like, I don't recognize this place. I didn't recognize my home. It was so sad and traumatic. And then I visited Atlanta this past weekend, and nobody had their mask on. It was insane. I was just like, yo, am I the only one caring about my health? Like, y'all might not care about my health, but I care about my health. So I go out and literally no one has their mask on. Bruh, that was scary. But we're in a world now which is so weird that requires us to wear a mask to be healthy. Is it making us a little antisocial? And then when somebody coughs here and there because of allergies or something, a scratchy throat, we gotta spray that disinfectant. COVID. You can't even get sick anymore without somebody thinking you have COVID. So, guys, just do your due diligence. Do what you're supposed to do. You know, then we don't have to worry. So please, 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 please protect yourself. And then if you protect yourself, you protect everybody else. You feel me? All right. So he also wants to fix personal protective equipment, like we mentioned, right? And provide clear, consistent, evidence-based guidance for communities and how to navigate through COVID, which is good. I'm a planner. I like plans. Tell me plans. I want it to be all ducks in a row. That way everything's organized, because unorganization isn't good for a country, to run a country, honestly. So planning for this effective, equitable distribution of the vaccines and rebuild and expand the defense of what he allegedly says Trump dismantled in order to predict, prevent, and mitigate the threat. He wants to implement the mask mandate nationwide, and we're going to move on and transition from COVID. And we're going to go back into the plan for Black America. Okay. So with this plan, he wants to make sure the economic relief because of COVID-19 reaches the African American businesses that needed it most. So expanding African American home ownership and access to affordable, safe housing, protect homeowners and renters from abusive lenders and landlords through a new homeowners and renters Bill of Rights. We could have used this, especially during the pandemic, because even though it was illegal to kick a tenant out during this pandemic, that didn't stop a lot of them who are still getting away with it. But should I sip my tea? And not only that, but he wants to encourage diverse hiring and promotion practices. This kind of sounds like affirmative action. And there are people who are on the fence on both sides of this, because the opposite side, the other side will say, oh, but isn't this reverse racism? And then the other side will say, no, this is in order to make sure there's something intact. So companies are diverse, because you know those companies where you go in and there's no diversity. It's just the same, plain Jane. I'm not going to say the companies out loud, but I've seen companies like that who refuse to hire out of what they're known for. Let's just say that. Alrighty, folks. So next, we are going to talk about how he wants to reinstate the Obama-Biden administration action to diversify our schools, which is actually a pretty good thing. Prioritizing communities harmed by the climate change and pollutions, and stop corporations from profiting off of incarceration. Say that again. To stop corporations from profiting off of incarceration. Did you feel that? I felt that. Alrighty, folks, we're going to transition into the percents of voting in 2016. Around 43% of eligible voters didn't vote in 2016. I just mentioned how I said I was one of them. Don't judge me. But I had an excuse. I was in a different state and I physically couldn't. But still, I should have done something else. That means 100 million people did not vote last time. That's crazy. 100 million people didn't vote in 2016. That's wild. Minority percentage. In 2012, more than 65% of the Black population voted. In 2016, 59.6% of the Black population voted. The Black voters percentage fell to 59.6 in 2016 after reaching a record high 66.6% in 2012. I don't like those numbers. 2012, around 47% of the Asian community voted, and in 2016, 49% of the Asian community voted. In 2012 and 16, the Hispanic vote stayed consistent at 47%, right? That's still not a lot, personally. Yo, my Latinos, y'all gotta stand up, especially for this election. Y'all don't represent. Shaking my head. But there were 26.7 million eligible voters in the Latinx community who did not vote. Again, I'm sorry. I fall in this category. Guys, I learned from my mistakes. I hope you did. Because after making my mistake in 2016, I decided to vote early. And I took care of that on Tuesday. And you best believe your girl was in the polls, filling in those circles. You got to remember to fully bubble. It's like the Scantrons back in high school and in college, because I know they do that in college. You got to fill it fully, and if you don't, they're going to not count it. Alrighty, we are going to talk about voter suppression. Let's play that clip, y'all. Alrighty, so let's talk voter suppression. Voter suppression is a strategy used to influence the outcome of an election, discouraging or preventing specific groups of people from voting. Some examples of voter suppression will be reducing the numbers of polling places, restricting early voting, and spreading misinformation about voting in person or by mail. This should be a crime. It should be illegal. Like, it's insane. When Alex and Tiffany were on here earlier talking about how it took either an hour and a half to vote, I was shocked. But again, more highly populated cities, I completely understand. I'm glad that as a first-time voter, that my voting experience was literally an in and out. Like, when I tell you, I drove to my polling location, parked the car, walked in, la-di-da-di-da. There was a lady to direct me, okay, 6 feet apart. Stood in the little circle bubbles that told me where to stand. And then you go to the lady. The lady has me pull out my ID. After I got my ID, I went ahead and she gave me my polling thing. She said, okay, go pick a polling place. So I picked my little desk, like I said, and boom, boom, boom. Had my phone out the whole time and was Googling some of the people I wasn't familiar with, you know, like your treasurer and stuff like that. Obviously, I knew from jump who I was going to vote for the election. But in terms of like state legislation, all that representation, I had to do a little Googling. And my Googling skills have helped. Those have improved. So yeah, but there were a lot of amendments that were super obvious. For one, being raising the minimum wage to $15 in Florida. I'm sorry, but can't nobody live over $10 an hour, especially if you're trying to be solo dolo. That's not possible. I can't. You can't possibly do that, right? All right, folks. I'm gonna need. Oh, skip to the end. Okay. So since we're there, this is the closing remarks. You guys understand off of everything you've heard, everything we talked about. This is severe. This isn't a joke. Vote like your life depends on it. If you were to die tomorrow, your last mark here on earth would be your vote. So go ahead and please vote. Not just for you, but for your future, for your children, for your loved ones, for your life, for the life of all of us. Please go out and vote, folks. So that wraps up our town hall. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. You can either follow us on BossFM or Black News Alerts social medias for more up-to-date information on the election. With that being said, remember to vote tomorrow, please. And remember that your voice matters. Your vote matters. We have the power to create and maintain change, and we want to see it. Once again, I'm your girl AD. Thank you so much for joining tonight, and good night.